in the lightning lane. The lunch pail, Matt American, Matt American!
And welcome to another episode of Behind the Gate with Scott and Kate. I'm one of your hosts, Scott Waddell, along with Caitlin Wesley. And again, episode number 25, sponsored by Denmark Acre Standardbred Racing and Breeding. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button and don't miss an episode here of our podcast. And tonight's guest, no stranger to PEI. He was born and raised there, a well-known maritime driver on the circuit, and well-known for being part of a very well-known family over in Prince Edward Island. So we'll just quickly run through his stats. This guy's got 712 wins, $1.8 million in purse money. And 2023, he had 34 wins, 171,000. And I think one of his, I remember one of his big wins in Fredericton Raceway. He won with an invitational horse called Melcapulco in 154 and 2 that afternoon. So going to send it over to Caitlin Wesley, and she's going to introduce our special guest.
Thanks, Scott. So we've got a well-known driver, one that likes to, pick and prod at everybody and have some fun with them on and off the track. So I'm super excited to just get to know you and talk more, one-on-one with you. So welcome aboard, Brodie. And like we said, it's an open book kind of night. So let her fly.
Perfect. Just the way I like it. Thanks for having me.
No, perfect. So we'll kind of start things off here, Brodie, on a family-oriented question or comment. Your family, of course, heavily involved in harness racing, including your dad, your grandfather, your sister. And do you think you were always destined to join them in some part or some way of horse racing?
Yeah, I think so, Scott.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was younger, I didn't have a lot of interest. I was always around the racetrack, always from when I was a kid. Introduced at a very early age, and we always had horses at the farm. We actually had a breeding farm. We had a stallion there a few years ago, and when I was growing up, we always had horses around. So I think probably I was destined to do something with horses. I knew from a very early age that horse training was not for me. I actually had this conversation with Dad a couple of different times, and I think he was actually somewhat happy to hear that maybe I was going to take a less active role. But eventually, when I turned 15 or 16, I started to take an interest in driving. And it just kind of went from there. I traveled all over. I went to Florida and I spent some time at Rito Carlton and of course, a short stay in Toronto area. So it took me a while, I guess, to really figure it out that a more passive approach. But so now I stick basically to driving. I'm running a farm now, but I think that's kind of common knowledge now that I'll not be staying there. But so just driving is kind of where I like to keep it right now. Yeah.
Okay, right on.
Awesome. So we've all know everyone's had their problems and their ups and downs with the commission. It's always been, a hit or miss type of thing. What are some things you're not a huge fan about, the maritime racing?
I thought about this a lot over the last few hours, and I think the perception, I think, is sometimes we don't have as much of an open door policy or a transparent policy as we might. I'll use an example, and this is not picking on anyone as such, but I'll use an example of a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, Mark Campbell. Last year, Mark got in a bit of a mix-up, and of course, everybody knew about it, and so on and so on. He came back right before Breeders' Crown Day, and I don't know the whole situation. I don't really care, to be honest. It's not my business, but the reporters jumped all over this quickly. Award-winning driver gets caught for doping his horses, and so on and so on. That drives me absolutely foolish, because the reporters know a fraction of the story. Was Mark guilty or not? And again, I'm just using Mark as an example. Was he guilty or not? I have no idea. But the perception of it was he came back to drive Breeders' Crown Day. It looks bad. And there was no explanation given. I wish that our commission, and it's probably not just the Maritimes, I just wish our commission would be a little more transparent, not just with the horse people, but with the public as well. Because, I mean, we have tremendous government support in PEI, and Nova Scotia, just got a bump in their purses, which is fantastic. New Brunswick is definitely, they're struggling and on their, hopefully not their last legs, but really in a struggle. Yeah. And if we don't show the public the reasons why things are happening, whether you're red or blue or orange or green, as far as your politics go, I think eventually our government's just going to go, hey guys, we're not going to put up with this kind of stuff. So I think we have to be more transparent, not just the commission, but as an industry all around. This is why this happened. We investigated this. This is what we found, and this is what happened. Sometimes I think we knuckle under with that type of stuff, and the naysayers are so quick to jump. I love to stop people quick in their tracks, especially those naysayers, those haters that, perhaps don't have anything better to do than just cause trouble. Let's just stop them right in the tracks. Here's how it is. This is why. Let's move on. And I think that continues our government support. The government has to answer to the people, right? And with our tremendous government support, I think we really have to become as transparent as possible. That's the one thing I'd change right off the top of my head.
That's awesome. I agree.
And why do you think, Brodie, that a situation such as Mark's, or I'll use Jason Hughes as an example, not picking on Jason, at all. But, it was kind of common knowledge that he had a positive test, and it was quite a while before it was made public. And you're right, perception is everything. And, to this day, as far as I know, unless something's happened recently, there still hasn't been anything printed as far as, he was going to appeal it. But I mean, here we are a couple months later or more, and still nothing. So
again, and that's again where I come back to it. Now I know it's probably in litigation. There's lawyers involved, I'm sure. I don't know the whole situation. Again, I try not to get involved in other people's business, but I mean, the perception of it is bad. It really is. And the whole thing with the O'Briens this year, just to talk about Jason, the whole thing with him being up for an award at the O'Briens, it's just the perception is bad. And the nightmare that Standard Bred Canada, whether there was foul play or not, I have no idea. Again, not my business. I'm sure they're figuring that out as we speak. But the perception of it is bad. And I hope that going forward that I know you don't want to push this kind of stuff in the public eye, but the haters are pushing so much on the industry as a whole. Horse racing is abusive. We've all heard the, all the lingo, right? So I think we just have to become more transparent, especially to the public, to the people that only read the local newspaper where that reporter flashes the headline, O'Brien nominee, whatever, they just, the reporters, and I get it. It's a news story and it's flashy and the whole 9 yards, but I think to nip it in the bud right away and just stop those haters in their tracks and say, hey, here's why it is. Here's what happened. Here's what we found. We're moving on from it. It just gives so much better perception. And again, I don't know anything about Jason Hughes' situation. I have no idea. I couldn't care less, really. It doesn't affect me. But as far as an industry as a whole, I think we have to be more transparent. And I think that I also think that if there is wrongdoing, I think we have to show the public that we are not going to put up with it. I really do. And I sometimes think that we're a little too lackadaisical on the fines and the suspensions and the whole 9 yard. If your horse shows up with something in its bloodstream that's completely in the wrong, then we have to show the public and the government and our elected officials that, you know what, we're not gonna put up with this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it just comes back to them being able to communicate, what they know, or when they're at least going to make a decision, at least let the public know that.
Yes. And I actually we have a drivers committee here. There's six, three regular guys, and we always bring in some other people. And this was brought up at the meeting. We just chatted about, and the two judges that were present said they didn't know anything themselves. So I don't know where that is, just to use that as an example. I have no idea where that is. I just hope that when it comes out, be it, there was wrongdoing or there wasn't, I think we have to show the public, hey, look, this is what it is. And instead of just kind of trying to shove it under the rug and letting people speculate on, was there a bias? Was there not, all those different things that people automatically go to. Because Jason is a huge stable, that's another thing that people will say, oh, well, he has, 20, 25 horses. How do they suspend him in the whole 9 yards? I think we just have to be more transparent.
Yeah. Kate, you get any thoughts on the commission?
Not really, but touching on, you saying or mentioning about your drivers committee, that is something I actually think is super for you guys, and think every track should honestly have that. Yes, every year, at least for Truro, we always have our drivers meeting before, your first day before you go out. That's just a quick, hey, this rule's changed. Hey, don't do that. But to have your drivers on a committee, have a say, have an opinion, because you guys are the ones out there. Those judges are not out there. The commission's not out there with you guys. You guys are actually the ones in this position. So it is, I love that you guys have that. And I think every track should have that. So we know your guys' thoughts.
Yeah. And I agree with you. To be honest, at first I was a little skeptical. And I mean, everybody knows my situation with the commission from years past. I was told I had to have a 6-year vacation, more or less. But,
yeah, we were going to ask you about that.
Yeah,
of course.
yeah. And you know what? At the time, I was much younger and felt I was being targeted, I guess. And I actually started refereeing and I've spoken about this a couple of times, but I actually started refereeing a lot of hockey when I left, when I was no longer driving. And I got to see it from the other side as far as the judge's standpoint. Were they targeting me? I probably, but I think they were targeting me because I was putting myself in their viewpoint. I know the hockey player that always comes to me and always has something to say after a call, or always, we're drawn to that player, and every time I got a fine or whatever it might be, I made my opinion heard. So I think I was probably putting myself in the limelight more than I needed to, whether I agreed or I didn't agree. There's channels to take, and making my voice heard on the line to the judges probably wasn't the best approach. Now this drivers committee, it was actually the gentleman, it was Clifford Aflack, who everybody knew we butted heads quite heavily, but it was actually him, or so I was told, that suggested I be part of this drivers committee. So, we, at the end, before Clifford passed, we had kind of put our differences aside, and we weren't best friends, but we became on speaking terms, more or less. and I actually referee with his son Jeff quite a bit. So this committee is great, and it's a lot of, whereas you mentioned, Caitlin, the drivers' meetings in the paddock, it's just, here's what the rules are, here's what we're looking at, here's what we're enforcing, and so on and so on. Whereas this drivers' committee, we meet before our schedules, our season starts, and then multiple times through the season, just to say, how's it going, guys? It's a lot more give and take than a drivers' meeting in the paddock. It's, what about this rule? What do you think? And they often ask our opinion. One of the topics we spoke about the other day was drifting out in the stretch. Yeah. And there was some, I think there was 6 drivers there and 2 judges, and it was a very, very amicable situation where it was a discussion and there was a lot of positivity taken from it. And I think the commission, as far as the judges have expressed, they love the idea of it. And to be honest, it just shows that, especially the 2 judges that were there, and I'll tell you, it was Derek Fallon and Kent Butler, 2 of our local guys. They're very receptive to our thoughts on a certain matter, and where do we think we need to go, and how should this rule be enforced or how it shouldn't, and just using that drifting out in the stretch type thing. So there's a lot of positivity from it, and it's not just a knee-jerk reaction. It's very proactive.
No, that's awesome.
No, I totally agree, and like I said, I love it. I know, like, when we have it here, most of us, not just drivers, but grooms or trainers, we'll run up because we want to know if there's a rule changed, or we want to know, hey, you need to be on the gate at this point or whatever. And sometimes it's frustrating just to listen to it, because it's like, man, like, you're changing the rule just like that, and you guys as drivers don't get that chance to, like, get out there and be like, oh crap, I forgot, then that's a $25 fine because you're off the gate, or you're not on the gate by such and such a time at Truro Raceway, or you're, the gate's leaving from this point this year and not that point. And it's like, oh, hold on, let me readjust myself. A meeting prior to, instead of an hour to, I think you guys would benefit from stuff like that. So having, that kind of committee to, to let your other drivers know these things is, I love it. I'm all for it.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree more. And I mean, our judges here on the island are, I think most of our drivers, if not all, have started to realize that they're not, myself included, it took me a long time to realize, but they're not necessarily out to punish us. They have a job to do, but they often will send down, friendly reminders. We and most of the drivers, I know Kenny Arsenault and I have talked about this, a friendly reminder behind the gate, you're pulling up to the gate, hey guys, fractions are a little off tonight, just keep an eye on it, your fractions, somebody grabbed a slow quarter or whatever it might be, or hey guys, we're going for big money here, don't forget the fines, or the urging fines are upped, or the day suspension added, all that kind of stuff. And it depends on which type of person you're, I guess, how you look at it. Either you're a pessimist and you go, oh well, they're headhunting for us, or you're an optimist and you go, maybe they're giving us a courtesy heads up here. Keep it in the back of our mind. We're going for whatever, $10,000, $15,000. They don't necessarily want to hand out a $300 fine. They're just giving us a friendly nudge to say, hey guys, just a reminder, here's where we're at. Just remember, keep it in the back of your mind. So I think the drivers committee on the island here, and we bring some new guys in all the time. And I mean, it's great. And hopefully something like this can bring in, some Nova Scotia drivers and some New Brunswick drivers in the future, whether it's, I don't know that it would be quite as often, but, beforehand when rule changes are being made, or even partway through the season, hey guys, how's this going, or how's that going? It keeps everybody on the same page, because we travel a lot for stakes, and if judging is different in Charlottetown than it is in Truro or Sydney or Woodstock or wherever it might be, it's hard for us to adjust.
Exactly.
But if it's straight across the board, here's what it is, then it's so much easier personally for me as a driver, what to expect. And the trainers know what to expect, so they can chat with us, and it's so much better working together than working against each other, for sure.
Is there a rule, Brodie, that is out there now that it kind of really gets to you and you think that it should be changed?
I don't know that there's a rule that I'd change. There's one I'd enforce a little bit more. The carrying out by putting a wheel under happens often. And I mean, I'm a little bit guilty of it, a tight squeeze and so on and so on. It gets frustrating. You're following the horse you want to follow and somebody shoves you three high, and so it's one that I don't know if it gets missed or I hope it's just missed. But there's one, I'm in the position I want to be in. You didn't put yourself in that position. It's just a rule that I wish, obviously we're inches apart. There's got to be a little bit of give and take, of course. But the carrying out, shoving somebody three high or four high or whatever it might be, aggravates me beyond belief. But it wouldn't be rule change, just maybe if it was enforced a little bit differently, I guess.
Okay. Let's go back a little bit to, the time that you did spend away from harness racing and driving, especially, of course. Do you think that was a fair rule for you?
Well, it had been leading up for quite a while, Scott. And to be honest, looking back at it now as an older person, I think it was probably the best move that could have happened, to be honest. Just to clarify, the judges didn't suspend me for 6 years. The commission suspended me pending hearing, and I basically told them to
didn't go back.
Take their hearing and shove it somewhere, more or less.
Yeah.
So I just didn't present myself to the commission. Would it have been 6 years? Probably not. It would probably be 6 months or a year or something. I was also barred from Red Shores for quite a while. And so on. And I mean, I just displaced myself from harness racing altogether. And then after time, I kind of started to get the itch back again. And I presented myself to the commission, and we had some chats and so on and so on. And looking back, I really do think it was the best thing at the time. It changed the way, and I think, again, refereeing hockey just changed the way I approach other drivers, for one, and the judges as well. So I really think that it was the best thing at the time. I really do. Yeah.
Go ahead, Kate.
Awesome. Let's touch base on a fantastic horse, Fernhill General. Can you kind of tell us about what he's like, what he was like, what he's been, how he was racing? Because he was always fun to watch, because what a powerhouse he can be. So just, tell our viewers what he was kind of like.
Well, you took the word right out of my mouth. He's a powerhouse. He's a lot of fun to drive. Fernhill General will probably go down as one of my favorite horses of all time to drive.
Awesome.
He has some quick speed. He probably was one of my, as a 2 and 3 year old, probably one of my best producing horses as far as driving him. He won the Brodie MacPhee last year, 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
2 years ago, I think. Sorry. And he's a big horse. I remember in the elimination, I was very careful with him through the first turn, because he's a big horse and he can get at one knee a little bit from time to time. And sometimes he could get a little bumpy in Charlottetown, and the turns in St. John are far less forgiving than Charlottetown. They're much flatter, and they just don't seem to suit that type of horse well. But we had a discussion. We were able to pick our post position for the final, and Earl picked the rail. And I was hesitant, but his Earl smarts came shining through. I don't know if he made any changes or not. He didn't tell me. But when I went through the first turn, there wasn't a ripple out of him. And we were smoking through the first turn, and Miles had come out off the gate hard at me and so on. But no, he's a good horse. he's a gentleman on the track. In the winner's circle and afterwards, he can be a bit of a bully. He's a little bit hard to handle, but he does absolutely nothing wrong on the track. I mean, you can start him up and shut him back down with two fingers. He relaxes well. He has a quick turn of foot. His biggest asset is from the gate to the turn. He can pace for 4 or 5 strides as hard as a lot of horses around. And what he'll do is he'll get you positioned and get you out of trouble, he doesn't really get all the accolades he deserves because as a 2-year-old in the Breeders' Crown, he get interfered with off the gate. And then after the Barry McIsaac win in his 3-year-old year, he ended up flipping his heart. So he missed a couple of sire stakes, which dropped him in the point standings, and he didn't make the final. He's made $100,000 right here, and over $100,000 now. I think he went over last fall, over $100,000, and he's never left the Maritimes. That's missing, not really getting a fair shake at both Breeders' Crowns, which is $50,000. So he's an absolute pleasure to drive. Always has been. He's had he not had his heart, where he flipped his heart, there, his injury, I'm sure probably would have $125,000, $130,000 made. So I can't say enough good about the horse.
Tell us a little bit about your relationship with the late Earl Smith. Of course, he entrusted you to drive this guy, Brodie, and if you don't mind, just kind of tell us how that made you feel as far as him trusting you with such a nice young horse.
Yeah, I mean, I had driven a little bit for Earl kind of leading up to that. I think I was probably just the best of the rest. All the other drivers were taken, so he didn't have much of a choice. But I mean, Earl and I always had, a pretty good relationship, and it grew the last number of years. With driving for him, we'd stop down the bar and he'd tell me what a poor driver I was every time I got off the track. He'd tell me what a poor driver I was, and ask me where I was going. And there was a few choice words in there. I won't say it on the podcast, but there was a lot of expletives there that we chat over a beer in the barn, and that kind of got me involved with some of my current owners, Peter and Don Smith and Ian Smith and those guys, and Arnold Hagen and Gerald Morrissey. He's kind of the one that got my foot in the door with them as owners. So I can't say enough good about him. He could be the most bullheaded man probably I've ever met. He's ranked right up there with my grandfather Alec, as being stubborn and so on. But I mean, I didn't really realize just how much I thought of Earl until I got the message that he had passed away. And it hit me quite a bit differently than I thought it might. It just, I think in my head, I had it that it was just a working relationship, but I remember my sister messaged me, and I woke up that morning and I read the text message, and it hit me like I think a family member would, a family member dying. So I guess that's always the way. We don't really know what we have until it's gone, but if a person could pick up half of what he knew as a driver and a horseman, we'd be doing well. Yeah,
absolutely.
Tell us about those standing mare, Rambling Lily, who you drove for a couple great guys in New Brunswick. Tell us your experience with her.
Another very, very, very fast horse, and very, very quick turn of foot. I didn't drive her much as a 2-year-old. At the end of her 2-year-old season, I think Mark had been driving her, Mark Campbell, and I forget if he had one of his own or just what happened there. But I think the first time I ever drove her was in Truro. I'm pretty sure Mark had been driving her and had success. I mean, anybody would have success with her. She was just
she was special,
an incredible mare, and even to race at 2 and then come back and win the Breeders' Crown at 3. And a funny little story. So Dad drove her mother and won the Breeders' Crown with her, and then I came back X amount of years later and won the Breeders' Crown with her daughter. So a father-son and a mother-daughter type thing won the Breeders' Crown. So I'm not sure if a lot of people know that, but that's yeah. So
No,
that
I
was
didn't know that.
a kind of a fun little tidbit there. But
Yeah.
I remember in the Breeders' Crown as a 3-year-old, I forget what the name of the mare was that Mike Stevenson had. I think it was Scooting for Joy, maybe. I think that's the mare's name. Anyway, I figured I was, first best. I was probably the best, but I had to be careful with Scooting for Joy. And we went through the first turn like NASCARs. Like it was, and I forget what the fractions were, but the bikes were slewing around the turn, and once I got Mike in behind me, I was able to go a quarter in like 30 and 4. So she's another one that you could just fire right up and then just have her relax just instantly. And she ended up winning that day. And I mean, in hindsight, had I not been suspended there, I probably would have had a lot more to say of how much money she made. I mean, she went on, and Walter had greats. Walter Chevrolet, who's another incredible driver here on PEI.
Yeah.
He had great success with her, and to do what she did year in and year out, I think is just an attribute to her and to Alan Jones. I mean, Alan did a great job managing her, and they are tremendous people, Alan and Norm Legier.
Yeah,
sure. They've been great to me. So I don't have enough good to say about them either. But she was she was a very, very special mare.
Yeah, she sure was. She made a lot of money here just in the Maritimes, and she could do it off the front. She could do it from off the pace. She was just one of the nicest mares I've seen racing, especially for a maritime bred.
That's right. And she didn't mind toughing it. In the stakes races, you tend to want to be handier the front, but when you get in with the kind of competition that the open mares presents, you have to be a little cagier in the way you drive. And she just showed that she's an incredible mare. It's really a shame that she passed. She wasn't really able to give us any babies and see where they went. Her mother was produced her and was, like I said, won the Breeders' Crown and produced her. And, had she been able to produce some foals, might they have been Breeders' Crown winners? It's just, it really is. It's too bad.
So take us way back to 2005. This is your first year of driving or second year. You won your first race, I believe, with the horse called Patty Surprise. And I made a little note here. I seen you talked about fractions earlier and kind of jumped out on the page on me. 105 and 3, and you went the mile 6 and 4, so 101 and 1 the back half, Brodie. But tell us about your first win, and did you get a little ribbon from the judges on that half, or was that a forgetful kind of thing?
No. So the only reason I was working for Dad, we had a lot of horses at that time, but I forget if he went to maybe traveling for stakes or something, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So I just got my license, and of course, I think Paul Turbide from the Madeleines owned the mare. Anyway, I got to front very, very easy. Slammed the brakes on very, very hard. Actually, the 3/4 were in 138. Not just the half, but when I was driving with the 3/4 were in 138, and then we smoked home in 28 and 4, and won by I think 5 or 6 lengths. But of course, all the drivers, I grew up around guys like Ronnie Masson and Kenny Arsenault and those guys. So they let it be known that they weren't very happy with the fractions after it. More kind of just picking and teasing. But shortly after the race was over, I'm elated in the winner's circle. I'm happy. I'm excited. It's my first drive, and I get down into the paddock after, and I hear Brodie call the judges. Little did I know it was a sign of things to come. No, they called me. Hi, Brodie. And I forget who it was at the time, but hi, Brodie. This is whoever, and we want to congratulate you on your win. Congratulations, first drive, first win. Yeah, and that's going to cost you 5%. Actions were, it wasn't like you went a half and 2 and a mile and 2. It was, the 138 was a little bit too much, and you're going to get a fine for it. And I said, okay. I was so happy at the time. It didn't make a whole lot of difference, but it was a learning experience for sure. I took a lot of ribbing for that one. Yeah.
must be interesting when you race against the other guys over there, and when it happens when a horse is on top, they get breaks, and sometimes quote unquote steal a race, off some fractions. Do you ever give the guys that win that way kind of a ribbing after or anything like that?
Oh yeah, yeah. As
Yeah,
Caitlin mentioned earlier, I'm usually the one that speaks on and off the track. I'm the abuser, right? And I take a lot of abuse too, but I am the abuser,
yeah,
and yeah, it's we're all good friends, but we're all competitors. But I mean, a guy could win 4 races on a night, and that's not what you mentioned to him. Well, why didn't you win 5? You should
yeah,
have won that 5th one where you finished second, right? So, and
yeah.
there's a lot of back and forth with guys and that kind of stuff, and all the guys, mostly all the guys, are pretty good about it. There's a lot of banter back and forth. We all know we have a job to do, and we try and be as professional as we can, especially on the track in the public eye.
Yeah.
But behind closed doors, I'm sure you can imagine some of the stuff that it's really not acceptable for this podcast.
Yeah, I was gonna say it probably gets pretty tense at times.
Yeah, it does. It does. And I mean, we fight and we squabble and
Yeah,
I mean everybody, this business there's so many highs and lows.
yeah,
You can win 5 races one night and then not win a race for another 2 weeks. And that it's hard to deal with that kind of stuff. And it's really just the horses moving up and down the ladder. And, some horses will get on a hot run and a cold run. But um, for the most part, there's a lot of good natured fun
yeah,
between a lot of great camaraderie between, most of the guys. And we have
yeah.
a tremendous drivers colony here. Like I would send the top 10 guys here anywhere in the world. And they're not going to look at a place. All
No.
the guys
Oh
all
my
the guys
God,
can
no.
read a program very well, drive their horse, what
Yeah,
would be, socially acceptable, more or less, if you want to call it that. So I mean, it's just when there's guys around, anybody, you have to do what you can. And I'll get back to your question about fractions.
yeah.
If I'm a 210 favorite with the rail, am I going to try and use the rail and fractions to my advantage? Of course. That's my utmost job. Is if I'm 210 on the board, I have the owner, the trainer, the betting public first and
Oh,
foremost. You have to think about those type of people. If I,
yeah,
can go a half in a minute instead of 57, does that better my chances? Definitely. So,
definitely.
I mean, realistically, we have rules that we have to follow, but you have to try and, especially as a catch driver, you have to try and play with your toe on that line quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And the money is so much more than it used to be too, Brodie. I mean, and there are full-time people over there too that do this business as their job.
Yeah, that's right. And that, like I said earlier, that's not the route that I necessarily ever wanted to take. And even now,
No,
but I mean, I go in, I go in usually once a week this time of year, and I train some horses. Like I drive for Tommy Weatherby exclusively. So,
yeah,
he calls me 3 or 4 days out. Hey, we have some horses to train. Can you come in and go with them? And
yeah.
it's a great team there with Colleen there and Tommy, and it's a great working environment. David O'Brien's actually helping Tommy this year, so that's another great
Okay.
set of eyes.
Yeah.
That we can try and figure out some issues with. So I mean, this time of year, especially with the good horses starting to come back. Fernhill General's close, Island Beach Boys close, Redland Bethany Jean, they'll all be qualifying in the next couple of weeks. And then the babies start kicking into gear where they're being put in the bikes here before long. So, yeah, we have a lot of guys, if I look down the shed row, there's most of the barns are probably 50 to 60%. I mean, Tommy Weatherby has a full barn. Adam Murner has a full barn.
Yeah.
Ronnie Matheson, Miles Heffernan. You go down the shed rows. Jason's obviously dealing with some stuff now, but Kenny Arsenault has almost a full barn. You go on, and there's a
Yeah.
lot of guys that do it exclusively full time. So it's a tough grind. It's a tough grind, even with the money we go for here. with the cost of everything going the way it is now. I know just as a driver, I don't have the overhead these guys had, but just, you think about, suits and whips and glasses and all that kind of stuff. It's an expensive sport, and it really is a grind for those guys. It really is. And the hours, if you figured out an hourly wage, you'd probably
Wouldn't be a
collapse.
whole lot, probably.
Yeah, you probably collapse, clutch your
Yeah.
chest. But I mean, the guys obviously love it and want to do it. So yeah.
I want to touch base on you and your sister. I am a huge Amber Campbell fan. Like, I look up to Amber for like everything.
I'm not an Amber Campbell fan at all, by the way. Not even a little bit. Not even a little bit. Like I don't even want to talk about her. But you go ahead.
What was it like to have like your first official race with her? Like, it must have been a thrill. You guys are so competitive as it is, so it must have been a lot of bickering back and forth.
Yeah, we do. Well, we bicker anyway. We bicker like it's just like we're just like cats and dogs. I mean, I always tell her she should have stuck to playing hockey. She was a far better hockey player than I ever was, and I mean, we torture each other. Absolutely, it's beyond. It's beyond. And I actually take pride in being able to get her fired up just like a light switch. It's just like flicking a light switch, right? So I take a lot of pride in that. But I don't actually remember the first drive that we had. I know we had a drive against the three of us: my grandfather, my sister, and I. A lot of purple in that race for sure.
Yeah.
And then Dad and Amber and I were all in a trot race. I think it was a couple of years ago.
Yes, I remember that.
I finished ahead, by the way, not that anybody cares, but I finished ahead of the other two. But no, it's a lot of fun. And again, we're a very close family, but when we get on the racetrack, not just bragging rights, I think we all respect each other enough to do our best against each other. And I always tell Amber that I babysit her. She's forever coming out off the gate at me when I have a 210 favorite and I have to babysit her and let her go or whatever. But Amber's a great driver. It really is a man's sport. I hate to say that, but as far as the drivers' colonies go, it really is. What Claire McDonald has done is, unparalleled in the Maritimes, and it's hard to break in. But Amber's a great driver. Safe as could be. She's not going to get in any trouble whatsoever. And she doesn't drive much. She drives her own a little bit. And she used to drive Trevor Hickens' old horse, but she's great. And she's got a great sense for horses and gives them the utmost care, just incredible care. Like, her horses are always fat and shiny, and, they're treated just like family. So Amber's great.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, we've asked some other drivers this question and people in the industry. Do you think the new director of racing for the commission should be an outsider with no ties to maritime racing, maybe even looking outside the region?
If I'm not mistaken, Scott, I think that the commissioner, the director, doesn't have a say. Doesn't really have a say as such. I think the commissioners, the province representatives as such, decide on matters, and the director is just a tiebreaker.
Okay.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, don't quote me on that, but I think that's kind of the way it goes. The director is in charge of informing people of, a positive test or whatever it might be.
Yes.
But I don't think the director actually has a say until there's a tie break needed, if I'm not mistaken. So with that being said, I don't believe in political appointments anyway. I think I just don't think it's right.
No.
I'm not saying the people that are on the commission aren't the right people. It's just a political appointment I don't necessarily agree with. I think it should be done democratically. I think we should. I think they should be voted in as such, and I think we need people from a driver, a former driver, for example, a former trainer, a
Yeah.
veterinarian, someone maybe a former judge, and people that are very, even a breeder, the people that are very involved, or once were very involved. And I actually
Yeah.
mentioned this to Dad, because Dad doesn't drive much anymore, and he doesn't really care to drive much anymore.
Right.
And I mentioned the job to him, and I think he'd be an incredible commissioner. He's a no BS type of guy, and very logical. I think former industry, maybe not necessarily leaders, but former industry people, I think that would be a perfect position. And I mean, no disrespect to who's there now, but as far as ruling on, horse medications and that kind of stuff, there might possibly be a better option, I guess. And again, I'm not criticizing any of the commissioner. I don't even really know who's on the commission anymore, but I think there's better. I don't know if better is the right word. I think there's more well-rounded options, I guess would be the way I'd word that. The director itself, I don't know if it makes a whole lot of difference, because like I said, I don't think they really have a say unless it's as a tiebreaker. That being said, should it be someone that doesn't have ties? Yes, but once they're here for a short period of time, PEI is it's hard not to have those ties, and that was one of Dad's biggest holdbacks on becoming a judge or a commissioner as such. You have to take a step back from your friends at the racetrack, because you have to have as much as you can an unbiased opinion. Yeah. And it's hard as humans, it's hard to do that anyway, but especially when you grew up around a place where, my dad grew up around the racetrack and has shot horses for everybody all over the Maritimes. So, I mean, it's hard. You have to basically take a step back and not be in that circle anymore. And I know Dad doesn't want to do that, but so that was his biggest downfall. But it's hard to be unbiased for anybody, I think. And like I say, Maritimers are known to be notoriously friendly. So it's hard not to be getting a biased opinion eventually, I think. So I don't know if that really matters.
Yeah.
Awesome. So before we go, I want to have some fun with you. And
okay.
There are some fun questions that are like off the top of your head, just let loose kind of, thing, just to get to know you, your personality and who you are. Because like I always say, I like to get to know you as a human, not just as that driver that gets out on the track and goes for, a mile. Like I like to know who you are and have some fun. So I have a couple questions.
Okay. And you have to keep this PG-13, right? PG-13. This is what you're telling me. This is a family show. We got to keep this as a family show.
Sure, we'll say that. We'll just say that. Okay. So first question. If you only could have one meal for the rest of your life, what meal would you choose?
Steak.
Ooh, yes. Steak. Okay.
Good choice.
That is a good choice. What was your nickname in high school or elementary or whatever?
Peachy. I used to get my hair cut like a buzz cut. Like my grandfather, my mother's father had a buzz cut, and I always used to get it cut very short. I was called Peachy. Tortured relentlessly. Peachy. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Who is your celebrity crush?
Margot Robbie.
Another good choice.
Oh my God. Anyway.
I'm a Sydney Sweeney guy too, so.
Yes. No kidding. My goodness.
If your friends and family had to say, just give us 3 words to describe you, what would those 3 words be?
He's a shithead. I think I don't know. Shithead might be 2 words, so that might actually be 4. But he's a shithead would definitely be what most of them would say. Yeah.
I love it. Okay. If you were to go to a desert island and you could only take 3 items, what would those items?
Ooh, that one's tough. Wow. Wow, that's I don't know. I'm thinking survival mode, so probably a knife. I don't know, something to start a fire with, and water of some sort. I don't know. Water bottle, maybe. I don't know. That's a tough question. I don't know. Probably a bottle of beer. I can't say water. Probably a bottle of beer.
Probably a bottle of beer.
Bottle of beer instead of a bottle of water. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
If you had to pick a name for your own book about you, what would that title be?
I think it would be after Frank Sinatra's song, "My Way." I did it
Oh,
my
nice.
way. I'm very, I think most people would say that about me. I'm very, kind of off the cuff and so on. I usually kind of march to the beat of my own drum. So I think that's what it would be called, my way.
My way.
I like it. If you were to do karaoke, what song would you pick?
The dance. I've done karaoke at Old Home Week with my shirt unbuttoned like David Hasselhoff. There's videos. You have to just look. There's pictures and videos. Yeah, I brought down the house. I didn't win that year. I think the judges had it out for me that year too. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Yeah, no, Garth Brooks, the dance, definitely. I've done it. Yeah, I've done it a few times, and yeah. Anyway, yeah, shirt unbuttoned, and it's just all the man meat hung out. And anyway, yeah, the dance by Garth Brooks.
That's awesome. Who do you think your celebrity lookalike would be?
Well, they did a thing a couple of years ago in the Trot magazine, and I didn't really think much about it. But the lead singer of Rascal Flatts, I'm not sure. I don't know the guy's name.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure his name, but they did it in Trot magazine, celebrity lookalike, and I guess it looked. I've also been told I look like. I want to say Mark Wahlberg, but it's not Mark Wahlberg. I'm sorry, I can't think of the guy's name, but yeah. Anyway, we'll have to go with the guy from Rascal Flatts because I can't think of the other guy's name. Yeah.
My last one.
Okay.
And some tracks actually do this now. So I was kind of interested on what you would choose. So if you had to pick one song that would take you back to the winner's circle, what song would that be?
Wow. Take me back to the winner's circle. I don't know. I don't. I mean, there's so many great songs to choose. I listen to all types of music, all types of music. I listen to 50s, 60s, orchestra music. I listen to it all. I guess just going with the other question, probably "My Way," I guess, by Frank Sinatra. Just off the top of my head, that would probably be the one. I'd take "All I Do Is Win" by DJ Khaled. But I think Mark Campbell's got that sewn up, showing by the last number of years. I think that's probably his song. I actually pick on it that him and his wife dance to this at home. All I do is win, and they're home dance to this stuff. So yeah, but I think he's got that one sealed up. So probably "My Way" by Frank Sinatra. Yeah.
Awesome. I love the answers. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, no worries. Anytime. Like I say, I'm a pretty open book. So if we could do this with some drinks in our hands some night, it'd probably be far more entertaining. But we'll have to keep it PG-13 for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, listen, Brodie, we've kept you almost an hour, so we'll let you go for tonight. But thanks very much for joining us tonight. It's been a blast.
Yeah, it has. It really has. Thank you, guys. And this is a great idea. I think this is great. Showing people the person behind the suit or the whatever. I think it's a great idea. Just one thing I would like to say before I go. Actually, it's a question. When Adam Murner was on this podcast, did you guys ask him to wear the ball cap? Because I feel like if he didn't have the ball cap on, I know he's only mid-30s, but his hairline just recedes so far back. Like, I feel like there's a horrible glare. I think maybe it was the lighting or something. I thought maybe you guys asked him to put on a ball cap. Maybe not. No, that's fine. If he didn't, that's fine. I mean, it's a sin really that his hairline is receding that far back at a young age. Anyway, it is what it is. I guess we'll just.
It has to take threaten thing.
Maybe it is a Cape Breton thing. Maybe it is. Yeah. I just think yeah. Anyway, I can't say anything. The man works extremely hard. Adam's a good friend of mine, and he gave me a little shot on here, so I figured I better give one back. But the man works incredibly hard, and he's a good friend of mine, and so on. So I couldn't find the time to do some of the things he does. So he's a good friend of mine, and I'll end it on a positive note.
Yeah, well, Arden Mofford mentioned you as well last night and had some great things to say about you.
I didn't see the whole video. I was actually going to tell him that he's getting parked. You asked, I think, I saw part of it this morning, but he asked me about who the drivers that he kind of, watches and so on. And he mentioned Mark and Corey and Paul Langell, and he never mentioned my name. So he's getting parked the next time I'm in against him for sure. He's going to be on the limb for a while. So, don't mention me now there, big fella. Arden's a good friend of mine as well. Yeah. So we usually have, if we're not racing, we have some conversations on Saturday night in the off season. And as you can imagine, they're pretty colorful conversations.
So you've probably been to the Governor's Pub a couple times.
I've actually not been to the Governor's Pub. I'm sorry to say. I haven't been. We're usually kind of in and out of Cape Breton. We're there and gone.
Okay.
But, no, definitely it's on the bucket list. I've heard tremendous things, and he invited us last year, and we couldn't get. So definitely we'll hit up Governor's Pub for sure next time I'm in Cape Breton. Next time I'm in Sydney.
Awesome.
Well, thanks again, Brodie, for taking time out of your schedule to meet to talk with us tonight. So episode number 25. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. Great to be here.
Awesome. So thanks again to our sponsors tonight, New Denmark Acres, Standardbred Breeding and Racing. Also, a welcome to our new sponsor. We just said him, Governor's Pub and Eatery, and Arden Mofford have signed on to be a sponsor with us. So thanks very much, Arden, and the Governor's Pub and Eatery. And Mike McGuigan says it's the best place in the Maritimes to eat, not just in Sydney, but in the Maritimes. So next week we have Tisha Shimes, and also James McDonald will join us next week. So that should be a great interview as well. So for myself, Scott Waddell, and co-host Caitlin Wesley, this has been Behind the Gate with Scott and Kate with Brodie MacPhee, and we'll see you next time.
Deep in the lightning lane, the lunch pail, Matt American.